Have you ever watched the movie Limitless? If so, you'll certainly recognize this scene from the opening credits of the movie. The first time I saw this, I was blown away at how sharp and realistic everything looked. I knew it was impossible for a camera to have a zoom that powerful, so I assumed CGI was used to carry out the effect. However, after doing some research, I found that there was in fact no CGI used in the shot. Instead, director Neil Berger carried out the effect using a rig of 3 red cameras mounted side by side on a single tripod, and each one had a different lens on it: a wide-angle section of the street, a medium, and a close-up. Limitless wasn't the first time we've seen something like this before on the big screen. As a matter of fact, a similar technique was used all the way back in 1977 in the short documentary Powers of 10. The director, Charles and Ray Eames, took 13 months to complete the film using aerial shots, photos from NASA, and microscopic images. The effect used in both of these examples is known as the infinite zoom effect. To understand the infinite zoom effect, you must first understand optical zoom. Optical zoom is where the camera uses its own lens to magnify an image at full resolution. The higher the focal length of the lens, the further it is able to zoom in. The focal length, measured in millimeters, is not simply the measurement of the lens itself, but rather the distance between the image sensor and the point at which all light rays converge inside a lens. When you change the focal length of your camera, you also change the field of view of the image. The lower the focal length, the wider the field of view, and vice versa. The infinite zoom effect is an optical illusion where an image zooms in while retaining the same field of view. In order to produce my own infinite zoom effect, I first found an empty street near my house and used my tripod to take 3 photos every 20th step, one with my wide, medium, and telephoto lens. I originally planned to stitch all of the images together in After Effects, however I quickly realized that it was much more effective to only use the telephoto shots. Once I put all the shots into my timeline, I disabled all the images except the bottom one. I then enabled the layer above the first one and used the scale tool to position it so that it matched with the bottom layer. I then parented the bottom layer to the one on top using the pick whip tool, and then repeated these steps over and over again for each photo until I reached the bottom of the street. Once that was complete, I defined the point I wanted to zoom into using the anchor point tool. You can see here that I parented all the images to the top one and used the anchor point tool to move the anchor point of the top image to the cross of the title safe area. After this, I created a scale keyframe, which I placed further in time, and then moved my playhead to the beginning of the timeline and reduced the scale until the first image of the street fit the entire frame, and set a keyframe for this scale value. I then selected both keyframes, right-clicked, chose Keyframe Assistance Exponential Scale. After Effects then created an exponential animation for me. In order to blend the images together, I selected each photo, double-clicked the rectangle tool in order to apply a mask on the photo I had selected, and set the mask feather to around 300 and the mask expansion to around -300. As you can see here, this sometimes revealed parts of the image I didn't want to see, meaning I had to go back and change the values. I then color corrected each image to the best of my ability with the curves tool. I repeated this process for each photo on my timeline. After doing all this is what I got. After completing the infinite zoom with my own photos, I thought it would be fun to try the same thing with photos from Google Earth. Every time I clicked the arrow to move forward, I used the Save Image feature. This was a tedious process, but I eventually ended up with around 40 photos, which I used to follow the same process I used before in After Effects. My final product looked like this.